This PSA was brought to you by the Peter G Show.
You may have second thoughts after the show.
Don't drink the Foster. We're really talented. We should get Oscars.
Just pick out a car, for Christ's sake.
No, hi, my name is Peter.
Yeah, I want.
Here's good.
Yeah.
Madam Perry.
I need to get back in the genie bottle.
Louis from Pennsylvania, you're on. He likes it. It's showtime.
Peter G Show, Peter G Show, divorce dad, single dad, divorce dad, single dad, Peter G Show.
That's right, it's showtime. Wednesday, November 9th. I got it right this week. I know where I'm at. Last week I had a little issue with not knowing what day it was. Wednesday, giving everybody a little time to catch up, catch on. Speaking of Wednesday, Life with Peter G, the Peter G Show, each and every Wednesday evening, right here, 6 p.m. Western Coast, because that's what kind of guy I am, a Western Coast, or 8 p.m. Central, or 9 p.m. on the East Coast. Your choice. If I'm late, I just move over to another time zone. But we're here every Wednesday, God willing. Anyway, hope everybody's doing well. How's that time change working out? How's that going? Nothing like eating, feeling like you're eating lunch at midnight. But that's the way it goes. It's just the way it is. We'll fix that next time around, promise. I think they're going to do away with it, but that's the way it goes. Anyway, glad you're here, or going to be here, watching from afar, however you're watching. The weather's changing. There's a lot of weather going on right now. We had rain in Los Angeles, which was great because 3 years ago we were having horrendous fires. So we had a good downpour of rain, which I'll take it. I don't care. It washes away all the dirt and grease and all that. But on the Atlantic coast, they're hunkering down over there. Florida is getting ready to get some windy semi-hurricane things going on, and a lot of water and whatever wind damage and all that. We got snow happening in some parts of the country, getting ready to fall. Welcome to going into winter time. So enjoy, people. Anyway, listen, got a great show. Not a good show, not a show. We got a great show tonight. I am proud to say that tonight I'm going to have Annebremner and Doug Bremner, authors. They got a book, Justice in the Age of Judgement, right here. From Amanda Knox to Kyle Rittenhouse, and the battle for due process in the digital age. They're going to explain this all, how life has just changed in the world we live in. And again, no slouches. So you're in for a treat tonight because Annebremner is not only an attorney, but she's a TV legal analyst. Doug Bremner, I needed to write it out. The list went on, but physician, professor, writer, and filmmaker. And I'm telling you that for you true crime people who love all this stuff, this is a really great book, and we're going to talk about it. I wouldn't want to miss it. And by the way, both their names are Bremner, but they're not married. They're brother and sister. So I haven't seen a combination like that going to work and being successful in a long time. And so it's pretty awesome to hear that this stuff does exist. But they're coming on in just a few minutes. But in the meantime, I want to remind you, as always, next week. That's right, next week, and I'll get it right this time. November 16th, next week, I'm going to have Victoria Kurloff from Divorce Analytics. She's going to be on the show. As we get into the holidays, I've been rolling in. I've been dripping on you with my getting through the holidays. A lot of people have a tough time with that, and we start talking about things. And a lot of people are newly separated or lost a loved one. things like that. So there's a lot of firsts going on, and it never gets easier. You just learn how to live with it. But when the holidays roll around, it gets even more intense. And, people are supposed to be having wonderful family times, and sometimes it's not always like that. So, we're going to start touching on divorce, because believe it or not, been there, done that. And I understand. And that's why I want to spread the message that you're not alone. We're going to talk about it. You're not pioneering in this stuff, and life does go on. But Victoria Karloff from Divorce Analytics, she's going to talk about the, how people make bad decisions when they're not thinking in the right mind, because, you're just a little bit, too emotional. Let's put it that way. And that's a good word, emotional. So she'll be on November 16th, Wednesday. Victoria Karloff from Divorce Analytics. She'll be here, and I suggest you be here too, because every show has a different little bit of information that I think you'll take to the bank with you. But that's about it for that. I want to also remind you real quick, for those of you who watch the Peter G Show, God bless you. I love you to death. But if you can't because you're busy, I totally get it. And you can take it in the car with you. Put an earbud in your ear. Go to Google Peter G Show podcast. Find the 20 different platforms it's on. Pick one, whether it's YouTube, Apple Podcasts or Amazon Podcasts. Just find one, bring it in the car, put an earbud when you're at work, because you can listen to it while you're working, because nobody likes working. Working. Get some good entertainment and get some information and enjoy the Peter G Show on the go. So just Google Peter G Show podcast, and that will get you, you'll pick a show. There's just about 300 of them and counting. So there's a topic for everybody, and probably several of the same topics from different people, so you get different perspectives. But just do it, and I thank you for doing it. Anyway, all right. It's going to be we're going to get in with the show as soon as I take a little break right here. I got to get in a word from our sponsor, because they're paying the bills. So I'll be right back, and then we're going to bring Anne and Doug Bremner, authors of Justice in the Age of Judgment. This book just dropped yesterday, by the way, and they're on my show today. How cool is that? All right. So I'll be right back after this message.
Let us help you with the high price of fuel. Hello, I'm Ty Thompson at CleanStarProducts.com. We can optimize your engine, saving you money and gas. Here's how. Our program works the same with gasoline and diesel engines. Whether you're using a car pack or SUV pack, the instructions are the same. Add 1 bottle to your engine oil, and each time you change your oil, add 1 bottle to the fuel tank each and every fuel fill-up. It's that easy. You get 10% fuel economy on average, lower emissions, and increased horsepower. DX1 sells for $2 an ounce, so for just a few dollars a fuel tank, you can optimize your engine, saving you money and gas. Come on, give it a try. It's the finest green-grade oil in the world from a California environmental company. You're going to feel it when you drive. Order online today. We'll get it out right away. CleanStarProducts.com/shop.
That's right, folks. Clean Star Products. Let's face it, cars are expensive, all right? Gas. I don't even have to tell you, all right? Expensive. People are keeping their cars longer. I am. Cars are not an investment. It's nice to be rolling around in nice, shiny things, but let's face it, it's a lot of money. Hold on to your cars. They're tools. But if you're going to hold on to your car, take care of it, just like you take care of your body, or you should take care of. Get a little bottle. All you do, Clean Start DX1 driver right here. You pour this into the crankcase. It cleans your engine. It helps your car run smoother because there's more lubricity inside your engine, less friction. Therefore, giving you better gas mileage, up to 10%, especially if you use the combo for the fuel, for the fuel and the oil. And you only put this in the crankcase every oil change. This is for your average size car. Look at how tiny this is. All right, I'm telling you. For more info, just go to CleanStarProducts.com. Tell them the Peter G Show sent you. And if you want to talk to them, talk to them. They'll talk back to you or talk back with you. But a few dollars goes a long way. Wise investment. Scout's honor. All right. The moment you've been waiting for, ladies and gentlemen, I want to bring in my special guest of the evening, And I got both of them here. So this is like double good. But they just dropped this book yesterday, right here. And we're fortunate enough to have them on this show tonight, day after the book drop. So we're going to get first dibs on them. And I'm proud of that. And again, I will not disappoint. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I want to bring in Ann and Doug Bremner. How you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
I made it. I made it. I want to thank you guys for taking the time. I know, coordinating this stuff. You guys are getting ready to get really busy, I think, with the books, and you got your own lives going on at the same time. And but somehow we swung it and we managed to get you doing this. And it's one thing when you're doing a phone interview or a podcast, but when you got to come on camera, it kind of changes the whole narrative, and you got to really be there. And I thank you for doing that. But anyway, who wants to start off? I want each of you to just give a small synopsis of, like, I mean, we know who you are, Ann and Doug, but for my viewers, give everybody you guys can like do rock, paper, scissors as to who goes first or whatever.
Okay.
But somebody start off and just give tell everybody who you are, what you do, what you've been doing, why you're doing it, and it's great to be here. Who's gonna do it?
You want to start, Doug?
Yeah. Well, we both start talking at the same time, so
That's true.
That's going to happen. But let's just wing it.
All right. So I'm Doug Bremner. I'm a psychiatrist and professor and writer, filmmaker, etc. And I've written this book with my sister, and she'll tell more about it. But it's been a great opportunity. It's an interesting topic. I've written several books. I've never had a book that I wrote where people said they literally devoured it. So it's been a great experience. It's about the effects of social media on high profile criminal cases in our society today.
All right.
Yeah, and my name's Anne Bremner, and I'm a lawyer in Seattle, and I'm also an analyst on Court TV and other networks, CNN, MSNBC, etc. I've been doing that about 20 years. In fact, I was on Court TV before, when they had the old Court TV, and now they've got the new Court TV because they were gone for about 20 years. But this book's really about confirmation bias and how people make up their minds really quickly, and they don't really change their minds when they see something in the media. We use the Amanda Knox case as an example, that she was basically convicted by the media and in the public's eyes and minds, before anybody really heard the evidence, and it never really changed until she was finally freed many years later, 4 years, having served 4 years in prison. And then this is for true crime people too. There's a lot of people that really follow true crime. There's a lot of cases in this book that we talk about in terms of the media influence. And Doug's a great writer. He majored in English in college before he went to medical school and became a psychiatrist, doctor, PhD in nuclear medicine, etc., brainiac. So it's kind of an interesting combo to have written this with my brother. We've had a lot of fun. But I think it's educational, and I think it's really interesting. And it's timely, given where we are in kind of a divided nation, and the fact that people really have arguments where one says their side and doesn't budge and doesn't listen to the other side. It's kind of the same thing in the media and how people have looked at trials, unless we're really careful and analyze the true facts.
But here's the thing, because there's and we're going to go through on like some of the cases that you touched on and things like that, because you have more than a dozen that you broke down and picked apart. We are living in some funky times nowadays. Cops are afraid to be cops because, everybody's got cameras. Everything's taken from one angle. Right. And you guys chose, how the hell did you just like go, you know what, I want to write about this stuff, and I want to talk about like what you didn't see or what you made, because once the case is over, people are like done. They're moving on to the next thing. And even if that person got found innocent after the case or somehow or another, like the way, you're explaining, nobody even cares anymore. And that's the problem, because we're so 15 minutes.
Well, we should care, and see, here we are talking at the same time, but we should care. But we picked the cases. We picked the cases I've analyzed and been on site. I was at the Michael Jackson trial. I was at the Casey Anthony trial. I was at the Scott Peterson trial for a long time. But we also had cases that I handled myself, and then cases that have just been in the public eye. But go ahead, Doug. That was kind of our pickings, so to speak.
So we're like brother and sister, so we both talk at the same time and interrupt each other. My kids always say that I'm constantly interrupting them, but they interrupt me to tell me that I'm interrupting them too much. But anyway, interesting thing about this, Peter, is that we started to get some of the reviews. There's like a blog tour going on, and so this has been the most popular book on this particular blog tour that I sent out 35 copies, half of which went to the United Kingdom, which I found fascinating. I think it must be because of the Amanda Knox case. But one of the things that the people writing the reviews say over and over again, which is really interesting, is that I had my own opinions or biases about these cases. The same thing happened when we talked to a radio show in Durham about the Duke Lacrosse case. And this presented new information that really changed my mind or changed my bias or allowed me to look at something in a new way. And that just speaks to the fact that people make an instant decision based on what they see initially in the news. And so I think we're providing a service here by going back over the facts and having people look at things in a new way.
I get that. But the thing was, what even got your spark going to go, hey, number one, we should write a book, and number two, this is what we're going to write it about. I mean, because there's so many things. You could have just focused on one thing or something, but you went on a whole bunch of them. And I mean, that's a lot of work. And again, what sparked it to say, we need to do this?
Well, we were going to talk about Amanda Knox. Doug and I both worked on her case for many, many years. And that's where it started. But then it became readily apparent that there were a lot of cases where individuals had suffered the fate like Amanda had, or that basically cases that needed to be reevaluated. I mean, 80% of jurors make up their minds in opening statement, and they don't change their minds at all until the end. I mean, they have the same opinion, and they filter the evidence through that initial decision they heard in the opening statement. And there's no research that supports that, but it's an oft repeated axiom in law, and I think it's true. So, what we're talking about here is Amanda Knox, was somebody that was convicted based on cartwheels and kisses and acting in a manner that was kind of strange. And that's what the Italian said. But yet, she's convicted on no evidence. Ultimately, the evidence was evaluated by independent experts, and it was found to be contaminated, compromised, and inadmissible, and she was freed, and she came back to Seattle. But that was the case we're going to talk about. But then it just spread to other cases and other cases and other cases, becoming the ones that I've described. And we tried to bring in some more recent cases, but we didn't quite get to the Johnny Depp trial. That would have been a whole nother book, I think.
But you did cover a lot of bases. You did. I mean,
yes.
George Floyd, Michael Jackson. I mean, the controversy, and I get it. People are very influenced. They hear 15 seconds of something, and that's it. They take it, and whether it's true or not. And I don't know about you guys, but I had I don't know if you're familiar. In Los Angeles, we used to have a very she's been around for about 25 years on KTLA. Her name was Sharon Tay. She was a news reporter who was a news anchor for about 25 years. And I had her on my show a couple of years ago. And I asked her, I said, do you believe the news you're reading is true? And she said, oh, absolutely. And I said, why? And she said, because we could be sued. We could be this. We could, so it's got to be right. I don't think we're in that day and age anymore. What do you guys think?
We are not. We're not. And I think that with social media, TikTok trials, LinkedIn, Twitter, everything else, you ask people where they get their news, and they may say social media, right? I mean, and the other thing is, Gertrude Stein said everyone gets so much information every day they lose their common sense. We have so much information now, including, which used to be like 3 networks, right? I mean, but now all of a sudden news is everywhere, and in a lot of different forms where journalists aren't necessarily involved. Everyone's a journalist, no one's a journalist, these days. So how do you sort through all that? I mean, how do you really sort through all that? So damaging in trials.
How do you go through all that?
Well, what we did with Amanda Knox, and we suggest this in the book, and I guess it's more advice for lawyers, but we put all the facts out. We got the videotapes of the scene. It was like Fellini forensics. You couldn't believe how bad that scene was handled by the Italian authorities. We had a website that was basically, we had it like 15 different languages. We had press kits. We had actual statements. So we were always pushing facts, always. And we would go on all the different shows and to the different print journalists with facts, not opinion. These are the facts. This is the case. This is what you should know. And we did it for years. And I think, and it dealt with the evidence and the contamination as well. We had experts that helped us, DNA experts. We had forensic people. We had ex-law enforcement people in our group that were helping us push those facts. We had to do that ourselves, you know, from the United States, from Seattle, little old Seattle, where, you know, where she came from. And there was a quote from the prosecutor. He goes, those Americans would send in the Marines to come get Amanda Knox. And I thought, well, we're just a little group of like a mouse that roared that's just pushing out facts all the time. That's the only anecdote.
Huh. Doug, from your psychiatric point of view, I mean, how did you approach when you were putting together a lot of this? I mean, besides the fact of like, you know, was there other things? I mean, how do you get into the mind of what's going on per case? I mean, to really start picking it apart. I mean, I know your sister's an attorney, so she goes, you know, and it's by the book or the law and practicalities and this and that. But I mean, do you look at things kind of different than Anne?
Well, Peter, I tell people I maybe spend as much time in the courtroom as many lawyers because I've done quite a bit of work as an expert witness and originally with pharmaceutical litigation. And so I came into the Amanda Knox case sort of as an amateur sleuth. Another area that I think I brought to this is the fact that I've done research on memory and post-traumatic stress disorder and how people remember things, especially traumatic events. We wrote a paper about the War Crimes Tribunal in The Hague and about how a witness who'd been a victim of rape from during a war crime remembered the particular event. And so one of the key things in the Amanda Knox case is that she made a false confession. And some of the research we've done on memory and how it can be distorted and false memory and the relevance it has for coerced confession, I think was really relevant to that case because, you know, she was hit over the head and interrogated for 14 hours. She was told to imagine what it would be like if someone was, the Peter Lumumba was there when he wasn't there. And then when she went along with that, they immediately had her sign a confession. And the interesting thing is that in 25% of cases where people are exonerated based on DNA, it's found that they have made a false confession.
Interesting, because I can see where they can, I don't know if I see how in the past, like you can get worn down and you just say things that you might not normally say. Personally, I don't know if I'm that guy, but I know after years of watching and seeing, especially doing this show and how influenced people can get, especially under pressure or things like that. Again, the mind, you know, I've had people on this show that say that there's mind control that goes on with, you know, the NSA and all this kind of stuff. I mean, he's like a deep state guy talking about all these things. And I don't doubt that there's things going on. And the mind is just so to unlock it and try to figure it out. I mean, everybody's different. So it just depends on who you're dealing with. And if they break you down, they'll break you down.
Well, it may seem strange that people would make false confessions but they'll say things like, you know, I've been interrogated for 10 hours. I was tired. I just wanted to go home. I thought that if I told them what they wanted to hear, they would let me go. It's crazy. But the fact is that or maybe they people, you know, in Amanda's case, they kept insisting you were there. And people get influenced by, especially under pressure and when there's nobody to give them advice, it's amazing the kind of things that people will admit to that it's just untrue.
Wow. And you have the cases that are in the book. I know you've been involved in a lot of cases, but I mean, the cases in this book, you've been involved in a few, right?
Yes. I was involved in the Amanda Knox case. I was involved in the Mary Kay Letourneau case. I defended the police in an 11-week-long trial where Billy Palau, her alleged victim, sued the police in the school district for not protecting him from Mary Kay Letourneau. And Cy Vance, who was the DA in Manhattan, was his lawyer. So there's Mary Kay Letourneau, Amanda Knox. There was the Rebecca Sahau case of a woman hanging naked from a balcony in Coronado, a very famous true crime case where the authorities said it was a suicide even though her hands were tied together, her feet were tied together, and our pathologist said that she had died on her back and been strangled. She didn't die from hanging. So that's been of huge interest to a lot of the web sleuths and true crime watchers. And then I also had the Susan Cox Powell case, which was Susan was missing for over a decade. Her husband, we believed, and the police believed, killed her in front of the kids in Utah during a snowstorm in the middle of the night. He took the kids at ages 2 and 4 in diapers out hiking in the middle of the night, and she disappears. I had that case, and then he ultimately got the kids. CPS in our state intervened to some really troubling things about him, including that he killed his wife, and the kids are witnesses. CPS gave the kids back to this Josh Powell, this individual, and he killed them with a hatchet and set the house on fire. And so we had a trial during the pandemic of this case, and the jury awarded $115 million in our favor against CPS. They had about 68 red flags besides what I just described that should have stopped them from ever letting this man near those kids. So those are the cases. Am I forgetting any? Oh, Betty Broderick. She was alleged to have killed her husband and his new wife many, many years ago, but she was very popular on Oprah Winfrey and other shows because she was kind of a woman who put her husband through medical school and law school and raised the kids and did everything and was a soccer mom, and her license plate said load him up. And he left her broke, took the kids, ran off with another woman, married her, who looked exactly like she did when they got married. And he said she was fat, ugly, etc. So when this homicide occurred, there's a lot of support from women out there, the kind of a Me Too of women got married in the 60s and early 70s and had basically worked their whole lives to support somebody who left them high and dry. So those are the cases that I've handled that are in the book, and then the others that I've covered for some of the networks. And there's quite a few really high profile cases.
Oh,
and they're people are fascinated by them, and I am too.
You are not new to the network scene. I mean, we spoke previously, and like I said, I keep thinking I know everybody, but but been seeing you for years, on and off.
Mm-hmm.
You're no stranger to this. I mean, so you know the game, but it fascinates me on what people are capable of. I think that's
right.
where the Doug part comes in, because it's like, how does somebody just get that seeing red to do such heinous crimes?
Right.
Doug?
Yeah, one other point I want to make, Peter, is that so we started with the number of the cases that Anne had, and then as we were writing the book, more cases started rolling in. We had George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Kyle Rittenhouse, and we said these are also cases that people are really interested in, and we need to incorporate them. And what's the common thread that weaves through all of this? And the common thread was the effect of social media on high-profile criminal cases, and now people are getting the effect of these cell phone videos that people are taking both with Rittenhouse and with George Floyd and with Ahmaud Arbery. But to get back to your question, Peter, about what is it that makes people commit these crimes? That's a mystery. I mean, sometimes it could be like in the case of Betty Broderick. It's a woman who is just pushed to the extreme. And I think that's what fascinates people about Betty Broderick is like, how much can one woman take? That's the question. Or in other cases, it's just people, in the Ahmaud Arbery case, what led those people to commit that crime? In their mind, they were committing a citizen's arrest. I would say that's just that's a case of, kind of an inbred sheriff's department in Glynn County, Georgia, where the police had been kind of doing what they wanted for a long time, kind of with collusion of the DA. And then when people from the outside came in and shone a light on what was going on, then people said, this is wrong. This is not citizen's arrest. This is just a lynching, as right. Anne pointed out in our book.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, look, I think cops, this past few years have been getting a really bad rap, and because of cases like George Floyd and all that. But And there's good and bad everybody. There is. But the majority of people, like most people, do not kill and chop up people, you know, but we only tend to remember the bad. We tend to remember, you know, for everything you've done good in your life, you screw up one thing and that's what's going to get brought to most, you know.
That's right.
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 I want to touch on this. I want to pick a couple of the recent cases and go into a little bit, because to me, most people, from watching the video and the media, this is how the influence and all comes in. When I personally saw that kid, Kyle Rittenhouse, you know, doing and watching TV, it seemed like there was this crazy kid who was gun happy,
Right.
who went running down the street and was gonna, you know, just show his stuff. But it didn't turn out to that, because we really didn't hear the story. We only got fed what we were fed. So
exactly.
can we talk about that for a minute or two?
Yeah,
Just
and the things about Rittenhouse, didn't the president even come out against him and call him some kind of criminal or whatever, like a vigilante? You know, the vigilantes were the defendants in the Aubrey case. But but I think that watching each act of violence from Kyle Rittenhouse, when you saw the video and you heard from the witnesses, each act was an act of self-defense, clearly. You know, hard to believe for the way everyone was let into this case, you know, about what people perceived him to be. And when he testified, talking about PTSD, he looked like he was suffering PTSD as he testified. It was like you could watch him relive what had happened, and he completely lost it. And that was real. That's what happened in the courtroom, you know, and of course he was acquitted. But, you know, you break that down, and I was doing court TV on his case, and all of us, you know, I'm on a panel every Tuesday night. There's 3 of us. We rarely agree, but all 3 of us, and then anchor Benny Peloton agreed. Each one of those acts was self-defense.
It's so easy to manipulate media. You take a picture of me out of all these frames with my eyes half closed, or a funky look on my face because it's a fraction of a millisecond, and then you can judge me by that. And that's what I'm saying. It's like they were showing this militant looking kid or something running down the street like he was, you know, gonna, you know, just do what he did, and that was that.
Mm-hmm.
But the story really was much different than that. And then who's really watching that? And then once you plant the seed in somebody's head, good luck trying to turn it around.
Right. And that's our thesis.
Well,
good luck trying to turn it around.
Doug, what do you got on that?
Well, as we wrote about in the book, Peter, there's actually scientific experiments have been done. There was a psychology study done out of Stanford where they would have people rate a suicide note, whether it was a true note or a false note. But then, unbeknownst to the people, the experimenters were falsely telling them they were doing much better than they actually were, much worse. And when they had an outside observer watch them, they concluded that someone was good at the task or bad at the task. And even when they went back and said, this is all fake, we were just making up that they were doing better than average or worse than average, they continued to persist in that belief that this person was better or worse. It'd be like if I was playing poker with you and I was cheating all the time, but doing very well. If someone came back and said, hey, this guy's been cheating all the time, he's not really a good poker player, you would not be able to change your belief that this person was better than average. And that's what happens with high profile criminal cases. We look at what we see on Facebook or on Twitter, the first image that we see, we decide whether someone's guilty or innocent. And then after that, it's almost impossible to change our minds. You can see it in a lot of these high profile criminal cases where the family members, once they're convinced that a particular person is guilty, they will never change their mind. It happened in the Amanda Knox case where the family of Meredith Kirscher believed that she was guilty. They probably still believe she's guilty.
I think they do.
Wow. Yeah, I kind of get that. But again, here's the thing over the past few years that I've been seeing a lot of, and then the cops get a bad rap. And again, I know there's some cops that aren't good, but there's more cops that love being cops. They believe in the system. They try to do their best. But I've got to tell you, I wouldn't want to be a police officer. You never know what you're walking up into. And prime example is in 2020 when you got these videos of these cops coming up to a car or trying to get somebody to like sit still, and they start running and they have a gun or they drop a gun or whatever. It's like, to me, if you didn't do something stupid, you wouldn't have gotten shot and killed. call me crazy, but I just think it's like a common sense factor. And then they're blaming the police. He was a good boy. Right.
Well, Peter, I've defended police officers for most of my career. That's been the mainstay of my career. I've got 2 high-profile police cases out here right now. I'm trying in the next 2 months. I'm always on the side of the cops.
Well,
I shouldn't say always on the side when they hire me. And I've had many departments that I've represented: Portland, Seattle, King County, State Patrol. I believe in cops. I think people are shifting back in favor of knowing that they should be respected and they're necessary. I'm sad about the great numbers of police officers that are leaving the department. I represented our police chief when she left the department. She was the first African-American female chief in the Seattle Police Department. And the city lit up in blue for her, in her name, when she retired. That's how much everyone loves her. And she stepped aside during the riots. A lot of things are happening politically. The city council was trying to slash her salary. They were trying to give her no salary. They're trying to run her department. They were trying to defund the police, etc. And that was just very, very destructive.
But again, I've seen your city burn. I mean, they were.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, how did you deal with that living there? It's like, to me, it's like, screw this place. It's I know it's a little bit different attitude up there, and it's dress as weird as you want or can be. And
that's Portland.
Yeah, whatever. It's all okay. It's all the same. No.
Yeah, it's Portland, San Francisco.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, it's like destroying stuff and the ideology of erasing history. I'm sorry, I think you learn from history, and if you, and I don't know, it just feels like, let's get rid of it and let's produce a whole new ideology. And what's bad is good and what's good is bad. I don't know. We're upside down right now, and you're in the thick of things there. How do you deal with living up there and just putting up with that crap? Because I think you're pretty practical.
Well, I think, for all of us, it was horrible. And, there was I think a real silent majority, that got a little more vocal when everything went to hell in a handbasket in Seattle. And I hope that never happens again. I mean, we're super liberal here, super liberal. And the whole West Coast is. But it's a horrible way to live. On the other hand, you have to have empathy and help the homeless, help the police and everything else. But we had a zone in Seattle that basically became its own city.
Yeah.
It was called the CHOP. I mean, it was just outrageous. And then in the East Precinct was occupied, shut down. That's where it was. It was just completely out of control. So it shouldn't have happened. It's over now, and I hope we've learned a lot from it. Because it was pretty amazing to see what was happening to Seattle.
Wow. All right, let's go to something else that is very current and I think very misunderstood, in my opinion. That was not too long ago, and that is George Floyd. So, Doug, why don't you talk about the whole George Floyd thing? I mean, what made you just delve into that whole deal, and what do you think went wrong and right with the whole thing?
Well, Peter, the book started out with it was about a Meta-Knox and Anne's involvement in the Meta-Knox case. Some other cases sort of got pulled in, and then I came in after the Meta-Knox theme started, and I started to pull in some other cases like the West Memphis 3 and the Duke Lacrosse case, because I thought it illustrated how what happened in the Meta-Knox case is a prosecutor, Giuliano Mignini, went off the rails, and it made it look like this is really just a problem with Italy. And I wanted to highlight the fact that this can happen in the U.S. too, and it happened with Duke Lacrosse with Michael Nafong, the prosecutor that went off the rails, who was running for election and held 16 news conferences before he even interviewed the alleged victim. And then as we were writing, these other cases appeared: George Floyd, Kyle Rittenhouse, and Ahmaud Arbery. And so Anne said, let's look at these cases too, and let's see what the common thread is of all of this. And the common thread was how social media affects high-profile criminal cases, and specifically how people can film something with their cell phone and broadcast it immediately, and people, as you did, instantly make up their mind that in the case of George Floyd, that there's a guy, the police officer Derek Chauvin, leaning his knee on George Floyd's neck, and similar things with these other cases. And so we wanted to get into the details of the cases and really pick things apart and see, where was the reality and where were the instant decisions that were being made in these cases. And one of the chapters was called Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd, 2 different cases, 2 different juries, and 2 different outcomes. Because when I saw those 2 different verdicts come down, I was like, why was one innocent and the other one guilty? And when we looked at it,
I think you mean Rittenhouse and Arbery.
oh, okay, yeah. So I meant Rittenhouse and Arbery, but the point is that when you look at what the jury is actually looking at and the details, often it's not what we initially saw in social media.
Wow. Yeah. Well, okay, you're correct, but here we are casting judgment. Bringing it back up to your book, and it's like everybody's got these different perspectives. George Floyd, all they're looking at is I can't breathe. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they honored this guy. And again, I don't like seeing anybody getting hurt. I really don't, and I don't care if I catch hell for this or not. But at the end of the day, they've honored this guy. They've built a statue, if I'm not correct, and and they got millions of dollars for this man's death. And again, nobody should be get hurt. But he was high on drugs, and but everybody forgets that part. All they think is the cop that took the downfall for for holding him down, and they didn't look at he wasn't really a great guy. I hate to say that, but he wasn't a nice guy. He was a criminal. Doesn't mean he's supposed to get killed, but you know what I mean? You tell me.
Well, no, I mean, and the thing about that case was that video went viral. And so, usually pre-trial, you shouldn't have a lot of evidence disseminated because it violates the accused's right to due process, or it can. Because you try a case in a courtroom. That's what courtrooms are for. You have rules of evidence and restrictions and a judge and lawyers and cross-examination and everything else. You have safeguards. But with that video, it was done. It was over with. I can't really comment on the views of him or anything else other than the timing was such that it started a movement, and he was high on drugs at the time. And you're right, that wasn't really explored. And the other thing about the trial, then Derek Chauvin just had the one lawyer. The prosecution had tons of lawyers. They had, through the AG's office, remember the county prosecutor, they said, we're going to give it to the attorney general. The attorney general came in, and they had a couple of pro bono lawyers on the prosecution side, and then others that were part of the AG's office. But they had, private lawyers who are very talented, and AG lawyers are very talented, but they had quite a few that outnumbered the defense. And the defense really didn't have a chance, kind of based on what we're saying, and I agree with you, is that it was over. As soon as people saw that video, they could have just played the video and rested the case. I mean, that's what convicted Derek Chauvin. And then we've had the subsequent federal prosecutions of the other officers. One of the officers said he was just directing traffic. Remember that? And he was indicted. I believe he was convicted recently. So you don't just have Derek Chauvin. You've got the officers that were restraining George Floyd too. And the exploration of other potential causes that contributed to his death, I think it was explored, but I think it was difficult for the defense to do that in a way that was meaningful to the jury.
Again, I know I don't want to be the hard ass, but it just seems to me it's like that he wasn't your ideal citizen, and that doesn't mean anything that he shouldn't have, that it should go this way. But they're honoring him like he was George Washington. Like we just got, and that's what, and a lot of people made money off of his death. Black Lives Matter. Where'd that money go? I'm sorry. I love the phrase Black Lives Matter. I think that means a lot. It really does. Mm-hmm. But when you say, well, all lives matter, because to me, it's like, and I said it a million times, I don't care what color you are. Either you're good or you're bad. It's real simple. I'll love you no matter what you look like. It doesn't matter to me. But the thing is, they made it so, avenue to where Black Lives Matter. It's like, of course, Black Lives Matter. But where'd the money go? That all that money that got poured into it, it's, and all over this kind of stuff. A lot of people made money off of that man's death, and they honored him, and like again, like it was George Washington,
mm-hmm.
But he really wasn't. I mean, at the end of the day, that would have never happened if he wasn't the person he was. Period. End of story. But you can't tell anybody that. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think the key thing, Peter, is that everybody has the right to have their day in court and have a jury hear the evidence and make a decision based on the evidence presented in court. What happened in the George Floyd case is so significant is that someone shot a video on their cell phone, uploaded it to the internet, it went viral right away. So you could argue that he never had a chance, as Anne has said, that once people saw him leaning there with the knee on the neck of George Floyd, even though, from what I understand, that was an approved procedure in the Minneapolis Police Department at the time. And the same way with Kyle Rittenhouse, he was walking down the street with an AK-15, and there's photographs of him with the AK-15, and immediately people came to the conclusion that he was a vigilante. However, in Wisconsin, it's not illegal to walk down the street with an AK-15. You can disagree with that. I disagree with that. I don't think an 18-year-old or 17-year-old should be able to walk down the street. But that's the law in Wisconsin. And the jury appropriately reviewed the evidence and decided that he was not guilty.
Well, in the Derek Chauvin trial too, don't forget that the settlement figure, which was in the millions, it was significant, was announced publicly during jury selection. And again, that kind of goes to my complaint about media and the system, to basically tell the jury, or they're going to learn, presumably, that there was this huge settlement. Then they're going to look at that and say, well, the city must think that, there's liability and there's guilt. So I just think we have benchmark press guidelines in Washington. I mean, most states do, to where you can try to work together to try and make sure there's some fundamental fairness for everybody in a trial. I mean, it's like Atticus Finch said, we're not created equal. Some people are rich, some people are poor. He said some women bake better pies. This is an all-male jury. You can be a Rockefeller or a pauper. We're not really created equal. We're only created equal in the courtroom, and that's so true. I mean, but as long as when you get there, it's not all completely tainted and decided.
Correct. But again, once that seed is planted and it is what it is, and trying to get people to change their minds. And I respect everybody's opinion. My problem is, it's there's a lot of people that are just misinformed. They buy into times of change. This is where your book comes in. It's like it's everything is so not what you think it is. I got this clip of Obama saying, if you throw enough shit out there, they'll believe it. And good or bad, whether you believe, what he said it, but it's the truth. If you keep on saying it long enough, it's going to sink in with somebody. It's a numbers game,
right?
And that's sad but true. But I want to go into nostalgia. I want to go into a few things further back, which people will kind of either remember or know of it. But Michael Jackson, what brought that on?
Well, I was covering trials for a long time, remotely, and the Michael Jackson trial started. It was coming up, and I thought, I'm actually going to go to a trial as an analyst and watch the whole thing. And I took a sabbatical from my office because I was gone for 6 months. And I always thought, it's like that F. Scott Fitzgerald line, show me a hero and I'll write you a tragedy. And it's a very sad case. And that I learned a lot covering a trial on site, every day, where cameras were not in the courtroom. And it was a very sad trial. And it was in 2005. He was not well. He didn't have anybody really there for him except his family, but no movie stars showed up in the Staples Center when he died. And he was acquitted. And I think he should be, based on the evidence that we heard. It was like a very bad case to bring it against Michael Jackson. All of the kids that the prosecutor said had been victimized by him, or many of them testified for Michael Jackson. So it was something else to be there. And it was a real small courtroom in Santa Maria, California, out by his ranch in Los Olivos. And we'd see him come every day and give us a peace sign, and all his fans would be cheering. And, he had all his entourage and the umbrella guy and everything else. And then he'd go into court, and then we just watched him come out. But it was quite the experience. And I really respected his lawyer, Tom Mesereau. He's very talented. He did a very good job.
I get it, and it couldn't be easy being Michael Jackson. I mean, it just wasn't. And so there's a lot of pros and cons. Who's after money? Is he really kind of weird? Is he not? I've coming from the music industry, I have spent a lot of time around people. One of my friends who's been on this show, Greg Fillinganes, he was Michael Jackson's music director for many, many years. And, not a bad thing to say about the man. It's just, except it's not easy being that high a profile. I mean, I remember walking into a studio, and Michael Jackson was at the studio by fluke when I walked in, and he had a mustache on, and he was driving like a Chevy Cavalier, like this little, nonchalant car, just so he can go places.
Yeah. They say he used to go to the drive-thru, I think in Jack in the Box in the Spider-Man outfit in Santa Maria. That was the legend.
Yeah, since a child being groomed and being a superstar, it's kind of messed up in some ways. I know there was issues with his family and his father and all this kind of crap. I get that, but to take it to extremes of like not child molestation and I think he loved love is a great word, and he appreciated the love of the things that maybe he didn't get. But I'm not sure. And one more question. Do you think he's really dead? Because there's a lot of controversy going on right now.
I don't know, but I tell you, like when he died, a lot of my friends and my parents called just to see if I was okay. Because we're the same age. I was always a fan. I was at that trial, and I saw, I knew a lot of people associated with Jackson that said the same things that you just stated. And I loved that he had a comeback with the This Is It tour that he was going to do, and the This Is It movie and CDs. What a talent. Very few people are geniuses like Michael Jackson was. Is he still alive? I guess there was music, but
only reason I say that is because I've just a couple of videos have crossed about like when they were wheeling him into the helicopter, that the body was moving and things like that. I mean, Doug, you got anything on that?
I don't know if Michael Jackson's alive or not, but I haven't seen those videos. But the conspiracy theory is an amazing thing.
Just making it a point, folks. I got it. That's my job. But the thing, all right, let's go to something else, and we're starting to run out of time. But to me, this is one of the biggest ones. OJ Simpson. I mean, everybody knows or feels that he killed Nicole and Ron Goldman, but he got away with it, and he lives he lives on. He did jail time for stupid stuff, which is beyond me. But that blows my mind, and I have him on video because when I was here in 1985, I did Star Search, and we went walking around. My first trip to LA. I know, don't laugh. Ed McMahon, Star Search, in a band that I played with. And we were the last band to ever be on Star Search at that point with Ed McMahon. But we went walking around Westwood, and back then video cameras were like this big. It was like a television. Right. And and we were in Westwood, and we were at the what burger? Magic Johnson owns them. I
don't know.
I forgot. I'm not talking to LA people.
Okay.
But, anyway, so we're out on the sidewalk, and OJ's coming out of Fat Burger. And Nicole is double parked in a white Lamborghini, and OJ comes out, and we go, OJ, stop, and he stops, and I got this video to this day. He goes, hello, I'm OJ Simpson. And he goes, I don't backlight that well. It's nighttime. And he goes, we're here in Westwood, California, home of my arch rivals, because he was a USC guy. And he goes, and then she starts the car because she's like, okay, get in the car. Well, let's get the hell out of here. And shortly after that, all that stuff went down, and I still got that video. But the thing was, that was historic. All that, from the slow chase to everything. What made you guys talk about that? Let me start with Doug.
Well, the interesting thing about the O.J. Simpson case, Peter, is that at the time, if you remember, it was very split along racial lines, where the white people thought that he was guilty, and as did I, and a lot of blacks felt like he'd been framed and had it treated unfairly. And there's a history behind that, of course. But the interesting thing is when we really delved into the case, he had the dream team. He had Johnny Cochran and the Kardashian, the father of Kim Kardashian as his attorneys. And Kardashian was actually friends with O.J. Simpson. And what they did is they created, again, this is the social media story where they created this story that he was the victim of racism. And then they planted this story in New Yorker magazine. And then what they did is there's a screenwriter who'd been writing a story about how the women had been unable to penetrate the LAPD. And she was interviewing this detective Furman, who was one of these men who was trying to prevent women from penetrating the LAPD. And he said the N-word on one of those 8 hours of tapes. And what the defense did is they got a hold of one of those tapes, and then they got up on the witness stand and said, "Have you ever used the N-word?" And he said, "No." And then they played back the tape. And so what that did is it raised the element of doubt in the mind of the jury that maybe he did plant this glove in the house of OJ, and maybe he did try and frame him because he was a racist, even though I don't think that's true. But when the jury looked at the facts, I think I changed my mind. I think that they did raise through some clever lawyering the element of reasonable doubt. And so I don't think it was an incorrect verdict that they brought down.
Wow. You're probably right. Anne, what's your take on this?
Well, I mean, I agree with Doug, but I don't agree with the verdict. And I think that, Jeff Toobin wrote the article. It's called An Incendiary Defense. And it was put out there in the New Yorker magazine, pre-trial. And Doug's right. They set up this whole defense that this was a racial prosecution and that there was plenty of evidence. And they carried it through very well through the trial. Remember with Dennis Fung, who's a criminalist, they absolutely annihilated him. That was very Shepard cross-examined him. And then they raised the specter over and over and over again that things were planted. The glove, one glove at the house at Bundy, then there's another glove behind Cato Kalin's cabin on the estate, and of course that's Mark Furman, he planted it. Oh, Mark Furman did this, he planted that. So once they tainted him, then it's kind of like, you don't trust the message if you don't trust the messenger. And so, this jury I've seen books that they've read, I've read their books, and they really felt that this resonated with them and that this is what happened to O.J. Simpson, that he was targeted based on race and that there was some monkey business with the evidence and that was enough for reasonable doubt.
And if you remember, Peter, that Johnny Cochran had the glove and they had OJ put on the glove and it wouldn't fit.
Right.
But that was because the glove was bloody and it shrank. But and then Johnny Cochran got up there and said, holding the glove, saying, if it doesn't fit, you must quit.
Yeah.
Right. That's a phrase.
That was huge.
I think that lived in infancy,
right.
Pretty much. And,
I'm sure Chris Darden, I've read all of their books, all the lawyer participants on both sides, but at that moment, it's like, should I do it? Should I not? And it's like, oh, that was a mistake, to have him try it on.
Wow. Listen, again, wow, I'm already getting ready to go over. I knew it was going to happen like this. I told you ahead of time that this is how it works. Once we get into the thick of things, it's time to go home. But I truly appreciate this. But I know you guys are promoting the book. All right. Again, people, right here, just dropped yesterday, and I got to have them today. Justice in the Age of Judgment, right here. Anne Bremner and Doug Bremner. If you guys are true crime, fanatics, they're picking apart a bunch of the greatest cases in our probably in our several decades, and so you're going to enjoy this book. I kind of and God bless Doug. The book wasn't out yet; it got delayed, and he printed out like page by page on regular printed paper and sent it to me ahead of time so I could start to figure what that. Yeah, and that's that. See, but that's what happens when you believe in what you do. And so it was awesome. But now I have the hardcover book. So this is coming, this is living with me. But this book just out, you can find it on let me do that too, by the way.
It's on, and it's #1 in new releases in media and law.
Yeah?
On Amazon.
On Amazon. So, okay. Banner, there we go. So if you want to get in touch with Doug or Anne Bremner, you can find them at their own websites. They got www.annebremner.com or www.dougbremner.com. This book can be found on Amazon. I'm sure if you just Google it right now, because it's hot off the press and you're already getting great reviews. I mean, from some major people. And that's awesome. The thing is, I know you guys we're doing a book, tour, so to speak, or interview right now, but you guys individually, in my opinion, have so much to give. And if you don't mind, sometime next year, I'd like to have you both, on individually, to where I can just focus on what you do. Because Doug, you work with you work with the VA. Am I correct?
That's right. Yeah, I'm a psychiatrist at the VA.
Okay, that's really, really important to me. Our veterans and things like that. So you do a lot of work with them. I'd love to talk about that stuff if you have the time to do it with me.
Sure, absolutely, Peter. Yeah,
and again, besides gracing us, making the show look a whole lot better, because between Doug and myself, you got the brains to go with it. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
I'd like to just delve into just stuff in general, because I know I can talk about this kind of stuff, but again, we're done with this year, and we're already almost into March for next year.
Yeah.
But if you're willing, I'd love to have you back.
I'd love to. Thank you.
All right.
To it.
You heard it here. So if she doesn't come back, all right. So that's. I'm sorry. I'm just holding you to it. I'll go. You remember when you said, and that's it. But again, folks, if you want to get a hold, you want this book, I would go and again, if you like to read, good read right here. Justice in the Age of Judgment, right here. Anne Bremner, Doug Bremner, great read about what our social media, how it's affected the way we judge what's going on. Everybody gets first impressions are a son of a gun in life in general, but everybody's got phones, everybody's filming everything, and it's so easy to misinterpret the video. The way it's presented to you. When I send texts, sometimes the way I intended to send it, as opposed to the way it was perceived, goes down in flames, and I go, oh my God! I didn't mean it like that. And that happens a lot. And this is the day and age we live in. So, here's what I want to do. I want each and every both of you guys. I'm going to start with Doug, because I want to close out with Ann too. Doug, if there's anything you want to leave us with here on this show about whether it's the book or life in general, give me something to pull you out with.
I just say that our justice system is something worth defending, and we have to continue to fight against these biases, both in the judicial system and in the political world, and to stand up for the truth.
Gotcha. Would you say that it's a lot of it has to, money makes the world go around, and a lot of people go, if you got enough money, you can do and get out of anything and this and that. What's your take on that?
No, I think that it is true that money, if you have more money, that you can get better lawyers. That seems to be pretty obvious. But we have to keep fighting. That I've heard it said that a society can be judged by how it takes care of its most disadvantaged, and it's true for the mental health field and for the legal field. And those two fields are intertwined. Since half of our mentally ill are in jail instead of in psychiatric hospitals. For one thing.
I'm going to take it back to love. We don't have enough of that going around. And last week I had a pastor on who takes care of the homeless, and it's all about love. And I'm going to talk about it in the month, because just yesterday I got almost scammed, and I was trying to help somebody, and he was screwing with me, and and I caught him. But love, I'm not going to be bitter, but you don't know who to trust. And again, there's people that are not so fortunate. With divorces, some people, $5,000 is a whole lot of money to people. And some people will tell you about their $500,000 divorce. And, but the ass ache is the same. The mental breakdown is all the same. All right. Anne, what you got? Tell me something to leave my viewers that close with this whole deal.
Well, I agree with both of you, but I think there's a great quote from Mark Twain that he said, always do right. It'll gratify some and astonish the rest. And I guess I want to leave with that. I mean, that's what we're trying to head toward, right? With the love, with the system's not perfect, let's try to get it better. You know, all those kinds of things. But if that's where your drive is, you're aimed in the right direction.
All right. And you're the law you take care of, is it criminal law? I mean, is that what you specialize? Okay, criminal law. Okay. Because I forgot to
criminal law, criminal and civil both.
Okay, just making sure. But you will come on in the future and be my guest. All right.
Yes.
I'm gonna love to like just really like get into specifics. All right. Listen,
Okay.
I love you both for taking the time out. I know you're busy, and I thank you for not only sending me a book, but coming on this show and talking about this book, because I think it's a great read for those who love to read, and especially the true crime people. And I goofed on one of my I called it crime junkies, one of my promos, because it was what came out of my head. But I got criticized for it. But again, I'm pretty organic or on the fly, whatever, and I don't care about fixing things. It's like I'll fix it in the mix. Thank you for taking the time to be on this show. And again, this is a show that's going to live on, and then so you can do what you will with it, share it with everybody. And the momentum is like a snowball. It starts off as a pea, and there's one thing for sure I'm positive about this show, and I don't know why I'm not in the center tonight, but I do know.
I don't either. Keep going like this
all night long, and I can't fix it right now because I got issues. but my doctor says I'm going to be okay. No. Anyway, the show's going to live on, and great talking with both of you. So I thank you. I know it's late for Doug, and you probably want to get rid of me too. So whatever.
Well, thanks for having us. It was a real pleasure, Peter.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Peter.
It's my pleasure. All right, I'm going to let you guys go. Ladies and gentlemen, last time, if you want to get in contact or read more about Anne Bremner and Doug Bremner, just go to their websites, either annebremner.com or dougbremner.com. They both have everything laid out there. I mean, their knowledge base and professionalism of what they do is second to none. So just check them out. And above all, check out their newly dropped book right here. You can get it on Amazon or anybody. I promise you, they're #1 best-selling already. With in the what category do you want to call this, guys?
Law and media. Yeah.
Which
media
one?
and the law. Media and the law.
All right. God bless you. All right. That's it. All right. Thank you. Oh man, I'm gonna get yelled at already, but I don't care. All right. Thank you. I'll talk to you guys later.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Anne Bremner and Doug Bremner, for taking the time to be on this show. Again, did I tell you it was going to be awesome? Last chance to contact them or read more about them, read about their backgrounds, everything else on them. annebremner.com, dougbremner.com. They both have their own websites. Get their book right here. Justice in the Age of Judgment, right here. All you true crime people love reading about this stuff. My daughter and my ex-wife, they love that stuff. They watch that channel big time because it's insane interesting. Go figure. Anyway. All right. Let me gather myself. Let's take a sip. I'm thirsty. That was a lot. Smooth. Thank you, you guys. Hey, I want to remind you, Friday is Veterans Day. Speaking of veterans, Doug Bremner is a psychiatrist for the Veterans Administration in Atlanta. Friday is Veterans Day. Don't take that for granted either. Most people do. That's the problem. You don't realize the sacrifice. I mean, a lot of people just sign up and they go, but there's a lot of people that have not come back the same for our freedom. And that's everything to us, because freedom is not free. People have given their lives. We've lost accountability. We've forgotten what it's like. I mean, I think people my age still do, but unfortunately, somewhere down the line, our kids, it's just been too friggin' easy. My parents the stories of my parents during World War I and World War II, walking as children and young adults to go 40 miles to get wheat to make bread while the Germans occupied Greece and things like that. I mean, you unimaginable stuff. But anyway, you can't blame them for not knowing unless you instill these values. So Veterans Day, Friday, this Friday. I think it's November 11th. Yeah, 9, 10, 11. Keep it in your mind, okay? Don't forget, people, next week, where am I? Next week, Wednesday, November 16th. Some more of the Getting Through the Holidays, okay? I want you to tune in because this is psychological stuff, too, for everybody. I'm going to have Victoria Kurloff from Divorce Analytics on this show. We're going to talk about divorce stuff, okay? Not only divorce stuff, but just family life stuff. First times, dealing with it, financial responsibilities, how you can rack up a bill, trying to deal with these things in a better manner and fashion, a more civil, before you just burn everything to the ground. Believe me, been there, done that. Do not miss this show, okay? Okay, Wednesday, November 16th. Victoria Karloff, Divorce Analytics, part of my Getting Through the Holidays features that are going to be getting a little more intense as we get towards Christmas, Thanksgiving. It's hard times, man. It's all family-oriented stuff, and there's a lot of displaced people. People without their kids for the first time, people without loved ones for the first time, whether they passed away or whatever. It's just learning how to cope. And that's what we're going to do right here on this show. So don't miss it, all right? Don't forget, again, last chance. If you can't watch the show, I love you for watching the show, but get on and Google Peter G. Show podcast. Put an earbud in the ear and just find Apple Podcasts or Amazon Podcasts or Spotify, whatever you want to do, and listen to the show. Next best thing to be in there, okay? It really is. Let me just check and see if anybody, yes. That's right. Love is missing. Thank you for sharing, Diana. I think I've never seen Diana. Anyway, that's it. I love you for watching the show. Share. And please, YouTube is screwing with me big time. They are throttling me down because I've gotten punished so many times for speaking my mind with them. But subscribe anyway, please. I need to build that. I don't care about it, but I need to show them, like, screw you guys. We're still growing, and if you want to completely, eviscerate me, well, then so be it. But until then, we are still on YouTube. Please subscribe. Show them somebody cares, okay? And if they don't, it doesn't matter. We tried. But you can't do something if you don't get up off the couch and try. And that's basically it. My name is Peter G. Thank you for watching the Peter G. Show every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, and 9 p.m. on the East Coast. Right here, God willing. Let me take one more sip because I thought it was a great show. I don't know about you. I love you for watching. I really do. Reminder, as always, be kind. You don't have to take a lot of shit from people, but you don't have to be an ass either, okay? Life is a bitch. We're in weird times. It's expensive. It's stressful. We need more love in the world. We really do. Try to take that breath before you bite or bark. Try. I'm just saying try. Believe me, it's taken me a while too. So either way, I love you guys. I love you guys. I love you guys. As always, my name is Peter G. Thank you for watching the Peter G. Show. I'm way over time, and I don't give a damn because I love you all. So, as always, peace out.
Peter G. Show. Peter G. Show. Divorce dad, single dad. Divorce dad, single dad. Peter G. Show.